when you first get your DSLR, when you get a DSLR in general, there are a lot of settings, there's a lot of features that are out there, but should you be intimidated by them, which I know that they can be very, very intimidating, but what can you do? Here are the settings that I recommend. Here are some of the things that I recommend forgetting about or just turning off, so that way you're not confused, and essentially it'll help you out and become more essentially a more reliable photographer on yourself and not just the settings. So what are they? Here they go. First feature, which basically comes right out of the box in most cameras, not sure of like, you know, some of the other brands, but like Canon, Nikon, all that kind of stuff, it's pretty much essential out of box, is auto ISO. Your auto ISO is on. Now I understand when I first got into photography, when you first get into photography, you're gonna shoot manual, and that's how it is, because that's the most important thing, is not knowing how to shoot 100%, but developing your eye, getting to shoot, and going around and shooting. That's the most important part. So auto is a viable option. But once you learn, so once you're a little past that stage, you know, auto ISO should be turned off, because I think it's even a worse form than a shutter priority or an aperture priority, because once again, essentially the camera is going to determine determine what the ISO needs to be, the sensor sensitivity to the light, you know, and it'll fluctuate, especially if you're shooting video. That's not a great idea, because you know, the lighting situation changes, and if you're in photography, if you're shooting, you know, if you're trying to shoot something and it's just not coming out the right way and you don't understand why, auto ISO could be the extreme reason. It's not reliable, and I think it's one of the worst in regards to aperture priority, shutter priority, or ISO. Number 2 is active delighting. So basically, when you use a JPEG, for example, we're not going to talk about raw format here, I'm not going to go into that yet. When you shoot a JPEG and you turn on active delighting, it kind of adds contrast. It fills in the highlights on a little bit of the darks, you know, in your preview screen, and you might think, well, great, that's what my image is. Well, that's just in your camera. That is not what 100% it is, so it can give you a false reading. So turn that off, show, you know, just let it be what it is on the JPEG, let it be more real, and don't worry about turning up the sharpness either. Just wanted to throw that, you know, throw that in there. It doesn't actually help the photo, just on the back of the camera's little 3-inch screen. Another thing that I always recommend is turning off playback. So this also eliminates chimping. You know, chimping is when you take a photo, you look down, take a photo, look down. So what I like to do, and because it also it might kind of delay your time a little bit, your shutter time, is turn that playback off. And especially playback and image rotation. You don't need image rotation at all, and plus it uses extra battery, but so does the playback. But besides that, the playback doesn't really have much use. You can just hit the little play button on your Canon, your Nikon, Olympus, whatever that is, to see what the photo is you took. You don't need to every single time take a photo, look, go, okay, click. You know what you're taking, especially if you're shooting continuous shots. You don't need the playback coming up, filling up your buffer, and really essentially draining your battery much more than it has to. Now this one can also be an interesting one. That is your autofocusing beep. Most of the time I leave mine on because I like it. I like to know that it's confirmed, you know, just for me in general. But, you know, if you're in a situation where you can't make a lot of noise or you need more privacy, for example, if you're at a wedding and you're doing the altar shots and everything, I would recommend turning that off. So out of the box, if you don't need it, don't worry about it. You can turn it off if you can just see the red focusing confirmation inside. I do like it, but once again, there are situations where you don't, so you don't have to always rely on that. And lastly, when you're just starting out, I actually say turn off and make sure your lens is on manual focus. Why is that? You might have your lens on manual focus. You'll go around, start shooting. You're like, why aren't my pictures in focus? Why are they blurry? Well, the big case is that when you're using manual focus, for most of you watching my channel, I know you understand what that means, but it's a big thing to turn off, is because that will be a main reason why, because you were thinking your lens, your kit lens, is supposed to autofocus, but if it's on manual, it is not. So check the little the switch on the side. So instead of it saying M, it says AM for basically automatic, even though they kind of messed that switch up. But essentially, you should turn that off. Keep it on auto for now when you're just starting out. So that's one of the things you should worry about when you're just getting your camera, is keeping that in auto. Don't worry about manual for now. Worry about that down the road. Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye, just wanted to give you some quick things that you shouldn't have to worry about when you first buy your DSLR. Squirrel just kind of threw his nuts at me. And just some things that you should turn off, because that way it doesn't confuse, you know, especially the beginners coming up, it doesn't really confuse or intimidate you, because the whole point of photography isn't to intimidate you, it's to challenge you to develop your eye and to advance and go from there. That's all I got. Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye. What else would you guys add down below? Let me know down in the comments. Eric Rossi, have a good day. Awkward sign off.